8:52 here. Tim Logan's been covering this Boeing story down in Jefferson City for our hometown newspaper, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, also at STLTODAY.com. He joins us via Skype with our partnership with STLTODAY.com. Good morning, Tim Logan.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Let's get to what we know. What happened yesterday? And it seems like from your story today, it seems like everybody's all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, the unity on this one has been pretty striking so far. Both House and Senate subcommittees yesterday voted to approve the governor's package of $150 million a year in new tax credits for this Boeing plant. So that means that it'll go to full debate in the Senate today, and the hope is that they get a bill done by the end of the week, which is it's moving at a pace where that could happen.
Okay, so it looks like it got out of the Senate. It's going to the Senate floor. What about the House? Because the House is a whole different animal. What are we hearing out of them?
It is. I believe the House, it's just that they have another committee that has to hear it. They do things a little differently in the House, and it's got to go through another subcommittee before it gets to the floor vote. Probably the Senate will vote, the full Senate will vote on it first, and then the House will vote on it. There's not a lot of opposition in the House either. So, you know, that's not too big a concern, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, legislation has to be done fast, and we all know that anybody can throw a wrench in it and slow it down and stop it. It's unprecedented, I think, in a sense, that the governor and the House and the Senate are working this fast, this closely together to get it done this quickly.
It is. I can't say that I've ever seen one quite like this before, but I haven't been covering it forever. There are a few people in the Senate who are concerned, who don't like tax credits and think we spend too much money on tax credits, and would like to see other tax credit programs reduced in exchange for increasing these programs that they want to use for Boeing. But it's not clear that they feel strongly enough about that they're going to stand in the way of this entire project.
Yeah. Also in your story, Tim Logan from STLToday.com, this concession by the unions. Explain this. This is a big story. What's this all about?
It's an interesting deal. I mean, like I said before, everybody is getting on board with this, and that includes the building trades unions. They agreed yesterday. Several of the large construction unions in town agreed yesterday that they would work if St. Louis gets this plant. They would work to build it in 3 8-hour shifts, basically working around the clock. And that would mean that they wouldn't really need to get any overtime, as opposed to sort of a standard 1 or 2 shift construction schedule. This would have the two effects. One, it would lower the cost of building here, and it would dramatically increase the speed with which Boeing could get a plant built. One of the labor officials I spoke with yesterday said he thinks that this would knock a 5-year construction timetable down to 2 years and 9 months, which is important to Boeing because they're already selling these planes, and they've got customers who want them in, I believe, before the end of this decade. So they need to get moving. And the faster that a plant can get built, the faster they can start making money selling airplanes, which is what they want to do.
Assuming the package is passed and signed by the governor, and assuming all this is buttoned up with the labor unions and everything, and the package has a bow on it, and it's given to Boeing, how realistic is it that St. Louis and Missouri has a realistic chance of landing something big out of this project?
That really depends on who you talk to. When I talk to outside people who cover the aerospace industry nationally, they don't give St. Louis particularly good odds for a lot of reasons. Most people think that it makes the most sense to build this plane in Seattle, frankly, and that's where Boeing's going to wind up. But you talk to people here, and the people who have been in the room with Boeing people here say that Boeing is taking St. Louis very seriously. And I don't know that final assembly is something that's likely to happen here. But even if they got a wing or some large component, that would be thousands of jobs, and it would be an entree into commercial aerospace. All the aerospace here is primarily defense, and that would, getting a big commercial component of a major plane would help us develop a commercial aerospace. It would diversify the industry. It would be good for the whole industry and the region's economy. So that would be, even if it's not the whole deal, a component would be a pretty big win.
Yeah, you keep hearing about the wing, the fuselage, something along those lines. Again, I think anything to help. Boeing's known to sort of spread these over different states, different districts, so they get more play in Washington. So at least we would have our foot into the game.
Yep. And there's a long-term play here too. I mean, Boeing's looking down the road to build a new bomber for the Air Force, and they need to, and St. Louis would very much like to get that. That's something that's probably more likely to happen. But you get a wing on the 787, and then you know how to do things that are going to be part of this bomber. So there's a lot of different fish in the water here.
Down in Jefferson City, Tim Logan from STLTODAY.com. Are we seeing any rural city split, some Kansas City angst with St. Louis? Are we seeing that rear its ugly head?
Not really. Kansas City people are totally on board with this. The handful of vocal opponents, although one of them is actually from St. Louis County, John Lamping, has probably been the most vocal critic. A couple other outstate lawmakers have been critical of the deal, mostly because they don't like spending so much on tax credits. But the people, the governor's office, and the supporters of this have done a very good job making the case that, look, there are aerospace suppliers all over this state, and they are all going to benefit from getting work on this project. So it's really, they're pitching it as a statewide deal, and so far that's how it's going.
Boeing also has to be careful. If they go to the trough and they ask for the moon and they get the moon, and then St. Louis and Missouri is sort of brushed aside, they're not going to be so quick the next time Boeing wants something.
Right. Yeah, you can't go to this well too often. But, there's a dozen states in the mix here. We're one of them. So, we can do all we want, but Boeing's going to do what it's going to do when they decide where to put this plane.
This decision is going to be made mid-January, right, by Boeing?
Mid-January. It's going to be made early next year.
Yeah. You're saying Washington is the front runner, or Washington's the odds-on favorite, more or less?
Yeah, I mean, they build almost all of their commercial production is done in Washington. This is really complicated, highly technical work. Experience matters. Supply chain matters. Transportation networks matter. So Washington, the Washington Union turned down the contract, which is why we're having this conversation. But at the end of the day, a lot of people think it would be smartest for Boeing to stick there,
So Boeing would go back to the unions, try and cut another deal with the unions?
That's the theory, But who knows? Boeing has said that no, they're serious about looking around and moving this work elsewhere. So
interesting stuff.
We'll see what happens.
Tim Logan has his ear to the ground down in Jefferson City. You can read him at STLToday.com, and you can watch him at STLToday.com with this video that'll be up posted here shortly. Tim, thanks for Skyping in. You have to teach Deb Peterson how to Skype. It's kind of embarrassing she can't do it. You got it.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for checking in. Tim Logan at STLToday.com via Skype, not only telling us what he knows, but telling us what he thinks. That video will be up and out. Interesting stuff going on in Jefferson City and Boeing. We'll know more as the day goes on. 9 o'clock, KTRS.